Greetings, good people, good people. Man, let me tell you, Mercury ain't even retrograde. And I'm like, what's happening with the technology? But we here, we in the house, what's happening? Hopefully everyone can see we're streaming live to should be Facebook, but there may be some privacy settings there we got to work out. Just want to put that out front. But also definitely on YouTube. So hopefully you're able to see us there. But greetings. My name is Barbara Ohuninifa, and I welcome you into the space. Today, I am here to talk to a very powerful sister, a very knowledgeable sister about psychedelics and plant medicine for ancestral healing, really for all types of emotional and mental healing. But y'all know my jam is around ancestral healing because we have a lot to work out in this lifetime after these 400 or 500 years of the situation we've been in, whether it's this country or some of the other countries in the diaspora. And so we really need to use all of our tools so that we can live our best lives now and improve our lives again now, but also going forwards and backwards. Those who practice African spiritual tradition understand that concept. That might be a little bit new for others, but the idea is the more you can do to heal yourself now, the better it will make it for your descendants. I think that's pretty straightforward. But we have with us today Dr. Keisha Holley-Johnson, a clinical psychologist with over 20 years experience. She also has many other certifications and more holistic methodologies that really help to heal our people. I mean, that's the simplest way I can put it. But before I bring her on, before we get started, regardless which platform that you're watching us on, whether it's Facebook or YouTube, click subscribe, click like, click share, click all the things so that you know the next time I go live, because my mission is to help Black women remember who the fuck we are. And yes, I did say that, and how to love ourselves. But we've been under siege for hundreds of years. So now we have to pull out all of the resources in order to heal ourselves, to remember who we are, and to truly love ourselves despite what we see and what the messages are that we get around us. So that's my jam. And if that's your jam, definitely subscribe as we bring more people in to share with us their wisdom, their knowledge, their tools, their expertise, so that we can get it together, so that we can have the life and create the lives that we want and that we deserve. That is our birthright. So let's get into it. And I just want to share a little bit about why psychedelics, why I'm bringing psychedelics as a part of my platform, because it's been a part of my healing in one way, shape, form, or another. I've been looking at all of the different ways that I can improve my health, that I can improve my mental health, that I can do exactly what I said my mission is, so that I can remember who I am at my core, so I can remember my gifts, my talents, but more importantly, so that I can relearn how to love myself. As I talked about in my first book, From Fat, Black, and Unlovable to Beautiful, Powerful Love, I was getting, and many other Black women getting messages about our unworthiness from birth. Everything we see in the media, what we see on TV, what we see in books, the messages have been brought into us to find ways to not care for ourselves, not prioritize ourselves. And so for me, as I go along this mission to heal myself, part of my destiny, part of my work is to help other Black women do the same. Technically, other women as well, but my first priority is Black women, because I am in this life as am a Black woman. And I really believe that as Black women heal and truly remember who we are, then that healing will expand out like water waves. Because we were, the first woman born, the first person born on this planet was born of a Black woman. And so our original mother needs to heal. We as Black women, as descendants of that woman, need to heal. So that's why I look at things like psychedelics and all the different ways that I can change and heal and grow. And this sister not only has, I always say she has the receipts, right? She has the degree, she has the medical training, the Western training, but she has the indigenous training and experience as well. And as a Black woman. And that's what we're talking about. Let's bring more of us into the space so that we can heal and grow together. But stick around to the end, because we're going to share more about how you can go even deeper and learn even more from Dr. Keisha and go from there. So with that, I'm going to bring her on. And
Hello. Good
hello,
evening.
yay. It worked.
It worked.
I wasn't sure what was about to happen. Let's see. I was about to be writing postcards or something. Shay, yes, I'm so glad that you were able to be here with us today. And, apologies for the little glitches we had at the beginning, but we're here now. We're in the space. We got a few people watching with us,
Great.
but we're going to keep it rolling. So, again, thank you. I poured a little libation already, lit a little Palo Santo, basically just to clear the space and clear the air, because whenever two or more are gathered, Spirit is here with us. The Most
Most
High is here with
definitely.
us. Ancestors are here with us. So we want to make sure that as we speak, it is right and flowing from that highest space. But I'm going to slow down for a minute and just thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is a wonderful opportunity just to continue to share wisdom and knowledge. So I'm just thankful to my ancestors to provide me the opportunity to speak with you, as well as all of our participants out there.
Absolutely. So I want to start with, let's just talk a little bit about who you are. Let's get into it. I talked about you've had over 20 years of experience and you got receipts. Basically, show them people the receipts. What you got, what you coming with.
So I am a licensed clinical neuropsychologist in the state of Texas. I have a private practice here in Houston. Um, let's see. Maybe I should just start with my story. So, well, why don't we do that?
Because that's how we do. That's how Black folks do. We storytellers. So
Yeah,
like
we tell stories. We tell
do it how
stories.
you do it.
So, why neuropsychology versus regular psychology? I got interested in neuropsychology because my father suffered a pretty bad accident where he injured his neck and spine when I was a teenager, and during that process of his recovery, he had to go to a cognitive rehabilitation therapist who also was a neuropsychologist. And my father's recovery was remarkable working with this man. And so I was emotionally attached to the outcome. And I said, this is something that I want to do. I want to be able to help, people like my father. And it was a unique way in which this man was working with him. Doing a lot of different memory tricks and all kinds of stuff. And so it kind of ignited the inner nerd in me. And I said, this is the route that I want to go. So I went to graduate school, went to a graduate school in a medical school, and learned everything that I needed to learn in regards to neuropsychology. So neuropsychology is the study of behavior, but in relation to the brain. And so all of the cognition and behavioral issues that can occur as a result of a brain insult. So that's kind of how I started in that direction. Um, while I was working in this area, specifically in Houston, Texas, I started working mostly with our folks, and one of the things that I noticed repeatedly was this issue of trauma. And it wasn't always physical trauma. I was seeing a lot of emotional trauma. So as a neuropsychologist, you're kind of limited. You're only limited basically to cognitive assessment or psychological assessment. And the people that I was coming across needed so much more than that. So, at that point, all I was able to do was just diagnose PTSD. That's all I was able to diagnose. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to be able to treat PTSD. Mm-hmm. So that kind of started me on the path to try and figure out what else I could do.
Let's pause there for a moment, because I think that's a really important point in that, and I think a major distinction that I've even experienced myself, in that, Western medicine has its place in terms of something acute. It can save your life. It can stop something that could be truly tragic or fatal in that moment. But it was never designed, in my opinion, I'm not a doctor, but as a patient, it does not seem it was ever designed to actually heal, but just to simply maybe intervene, save your life, and then manage symptoms. But what you wanted to do was go deeper and actually get to the root of thing and figure out, how can we not have this issue?
Absolutely.
Ashe.
Absolutely. So that started me on the quest to see what else I could do. So as a psychologist, I could do therapy as well as assessment. So I started this process of doing therapy just to get to the root of a lot of folks' issues. One of the things, again, that I noticed mostly, at least with African Americans, is this idea of chronic emotional trauma.
Mm,
And it was so deep that all of the things that I learned to do with westernized medicine was not working, was not working. And so I kind of felt like I was reaching a stalemate, if you could say that. I
mm-hmm.
said, this is really, really frustrating. There's got to be other things out here to be able to reach people and to actually have them heal. So that started me on my quest for some other kind of holistic and metaphysical types of treatments that I could do to help work with this.
Mm-hmm.
So that started back in 2015. So in that process, I started learning about energy healing. So I became a Reiki master. Um, let's see what else. Sound healing. I started learning about that and became a sound healer. Crystal therapist. So all of these things that would not be considered accepted in westernized medicine. But as I was learning about it and starting to use it with my patients, I started noticing a huge difference. The difference being that some of the blocks that I would see them have were starting to be removed. Of course, I was doing this in private. I wasn't letting people know publicly that this was stuff that I was doing because this is not considered standard practice for
Right.
westernized medicine. So I was still kind of dealing with myself and my own ego issues, you know.
I mean, but at the same time, I give you grace in that because, like, even we think about our ancestors here on this land who practice hoodoo, they couldn't tell everybody what they were doing. Like
Right.
sometimes you have to keep it within the community to keep it safe and to incubate it. But when the time is right, it's there. The other thing I wanted to
Exactly.
point out too, from listening to your story, which I didn't even know it began like that, it's through that experience with your father
Yes.
that planted the seed,
Most
or rather I would say that matured the seed because the seed was already there. And
absolutely.
just how beautiful that is, that ancestors been walking with you along the whole way, like, child, you about to do this work and we're going to make sure you do it because it's going to be so intertwined in your life.
Yes.
But go
Yes.
ahead and get that western piece because we're going to need that. Go ahead
Exactly.
and get all the rest of the pieces because we're going to need that. We're going to need to make this gumbo
Yes.
so our
Yes.
people can get right, because this 500 years worth of trauma is not just this lifetime,
Exactly.
which is
Exactly.
probably why that stuff wasn't working. The trauma was looking like,
Exactly. And that's it's interesting you say that because as I was learning all these other alternative methods of healing, I literally had to throw out a lot of the stuff that I learned with westernized healing. So that process took a long time. I literally had to deprogram my own mind to be able to be open to these other aspects of healing and see that these things are actually working. And so that's been the story as far as just kind of discovering myself through this process and then being able to pass on that information and that wisdom to others. So here comes 2018, and this is when I finally say, okay, I'm going to start letting the community know that I do these
came out
other
the closet.
things. Yes, I came out the closet. Oh, and it took so long. It took so long.
Did you hyperventilate?
I did. Because I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and advertise some of this stuff on my website that I do all of this. And so, yes, 2018, I came out of the closet. And when I did that, I mean, that's when the floodgates opened. And it brought me to tears because the calls that I would get from people all the time is, where have you been? I've been looking for someone like you. Been looking for someone like you. All this time I've been seeking therapy and things haven't been working. And I wanted someone who had more of a holistic approach and did some of these other things. And so again, it brought me to tears when I got the response that I got. I'm getting kind of emotional now just thinking about it because I was hiding myself and all these other things because of so much concern of how my colleagues would view me, doing this hocus pocus kinds of stuff, as they would call it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that started my journey into indigenous spirituality because I said, okay, these are things that I'm seeing that are actually working. I want to learn more about indigenous medicine, indigenous spirituality, because this is obviously the path that I need to go down. And so it's been a beautiful experience. I've traveled all over the world learning about different methods of healing, bringing it back to the community. I had a life-changing experience myself in 2019 when I went to Peru. And anyone that knows me knows that I love to travel. So I got the opportunity to go with this travel group to Peru. And I was just thinking, I'm just going to go so I can experience the Amazon. Not
Right.
not really knowing that that my whole life was going to change trying plant medicine. So I went with this group to try ayahuasca in the Amazonian mountains. We were out there for 16 days. Again, it was a life-changing experience because ingesting ayahuasca and then seeing the response of people. So these are people who had significant traumas, whether it was sexual, physical, it didn't matter. But what I found with this group of people that I traveled with is that they got instant healing after ingesting ayahuasca.
Wow.
And the traumas, again, severe traumas, things that I know with just regular medication and therapy would take years, 8 to 10 years to work through things. They
And that's
actually,
just to get at a baseline. That's not even to really heal it, but just to be able to function
exactly,
probably.
exactly. And
Wow.
so, and I saw instant or immediate healing working with these shamans in the Amazonian mountains. And so, me being a science nerd, you've got to show me the proof. I need tangible proof that something is going to work. And I got it. I got it with that. And I said,
Don't
okay,
you love it when you ask and they said, okay, we're going to show you.
yeah,
Now
exactly.
what you going to do? We sent you there. You didn't even know why you were going.
Exactly.
You're going to come back
Exactly.
with all kinds of proof, evidence, and healing your damn self that you didn't even know you
Exactly.
were going to get. Love
Yeah,
it.
and it was interesting because the shamans that were there, one of the lead shaman was telling me, I need you to watch what I'm doing because this is something that you're going to bring back to the community. So when
Oh,
other people were kind of going through their different stages, I actually was lucid for most of the time. And I was lucid on purpose because he kept going, hey, watch me, watch me. You're going to you're going to do this. You're going to bring this back to your community so that you can help your people. Um, and yeah, so again, with me knowing spirit, knowing me, knowing that I need to see proof,
yep.
I got that proof.
Your ancestors knew they baby. They knew they knew what you needed and made sure of it. And
Absolutely.
what I'm hearing in this story too, that's so amazing is that, whether we are, I don't, no matter what spiritual practice we have, whether you're a Christian, if you're Muslim, African spiritual tradition, the fact is that we are all human beings on this planet, and that this planet has created and given us things that can help us with healing no matter what. And so you're drawing from these different cultures that some people might say that ain't African or that's
Right.
not African American, but we don't care what culture it comes from in general, as long as it is indigenous and it's actually helping us. Like you said, the proof is in the proof,
Yes.
whether it's something, and you've been sent all over the world to gather that for us so that we can do what we need to do. Don't get me started because I'm like, ancestors came from everywhere.
And then just tying it back into neuropsychology. So it's like
Yes.
after having that experience, I said, I don't even understand how did the plants do this? I need to get that proof again as to how do the plant medicines operate on the brain to be able
Mm-hmm.
to remove these blockages in order to see the healing take place. And so I did all of my research. And one of the things that I found out is that a lot of different plant medicines, they operate on different receptors in the brain to alter your mood, to increase happiness, decrease anxiety, and it's almost instantaneous. And so,
But not a temporary high, a permanent change.
yes, a permanent change, because what happens is that you're actually stimulating new nerve cell growth in those different areas of the brain. And we'll talk more about that, during the workshop, of course. But
Mm-hmm.
there's three main areas that the plant medicine will work on, and that's the amygdala, which is your emotional response, the hippocampus, which is where you store all of your memories, and then the prefrontal cortex, and this has everything to do with your attention and your concentration and all that. So these are areas that are mostly affected by PTSD. Okay.
Absolutely.
And so plant medicine like psilocybin, like ayahuasca, like ibogaine, all of those work on those nerve cell receptors in those areas quickly, like instantaneously. So when we're talking about those different blockages that a lot of people have, when you're ingesting the plant medicine, those blockages get removed immediately, and you can come in and then do your actual work, the counseling work, the things that need to be done to start that healing process. So that was the scientific, proof in the pudding that I needed to say, okay, this is something I need to really look into.
I'm so glad you did, because when we think about, again, I'm always looking at that ancestral piece, right? And part of what I tapped into when I was writing that first book is that idea of epigenetics, because I found myself, I won't go into too much detail about my story because it's out there, and this is not for that, but dealing with major health, having to have these 3 open heart surgeries, dying 3 times and coming back, to where the doctors were like, we don't even understand what's happening right now, because it was beyond Western medicine.
Yes.
And then 6 years later or 5 years later, they find this very rare tumor in my adrenal gland. And so these are things that didn't just happen in this lifetime.
Right.
Apparently, I was the one who said, give me all our trauma, y'all, I deal with it. Or me and my sisters, because we all have been through some things that people look at us like, how are y'all still here? Like, what? But I don't want it to continue. I don't want to continue in my life, and I don't want it to continue in my children's or descendants' life. So I'm like, what are all the things can we do to stop this here, to stop this now? And that's where this comes in, because if we've been through 400 or 500 years of trauma, absolute terror, forget about all of this shit they talking about, and justifying slavery or making it seem like it wasn't that bad. It was absolute terror. We know that, but we just gonna keep saying it until they can no longer, get that lie out there, to where we are still affected by it. Epigenetics means our DNA has been altered through that repeated trauma, year after year, generation after generation, to where that DNA, our DNA, is already traumatized when we're born.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm putting it in layman's terms, but I'm telling it how I experience it.
Yes.
So it's going to take something much deeper, like what you're describing, to heal that. Because we're not just healing for us, we're healing for them 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. Yes. Post-traumatic slave disorder. Absolutely.
Yes.
It's a real thing.
It is.
We just look out in the streets, how people treating each other, or how we get aggravated, all the ways we know it's there. And so I just want to say thank you for doing this work and listening to your ancestors, because it's not always an easy thing to do. And it hasn't been easy for you.
No, it hasn't. But I'm definitely continuing to see why my journey has been the way that it's been. And I'm starting to, honestly, just now within the past few years, see how it's starting to fit together. And so I said, oh, this is why I needed to have this particular specialty. This is why I needed to have this niche. And this is why I need to work with this group of people. Because also, while in my graduate school training, I was the only African American in my program during that time. I was the only one that was seeking to work with my community. And so I had to fight to find all of my different, clinical positions and things like that, because I said, when I get out of here, this is who I want to work with. And so it was very, very challenging, but now I'm extremely appreciative for every challenge.
So are we, honey.
Struggle, every opportunity, every no that I received,
it just led you right where you needed to be.
It just led me right where I needed to be. So, plant medicine is an amazing tool. I know that we'll talk more about that, on Sunday, but I'm really ready to, show the community how important it is to utilize this for our healing and to not use it just for recreational use.
Right.
That's one of my pet peeves, is that, people are using it for recreational use as a means of escapism
Mhm.
from all of their traumas, when in fact they should be using it for what it was built for, which is for the healing, using particular intentions, making sure that you're awakening all of your senses, making sure that you're open to the things that the plant wants to show you. I always tell people never underestimate the plant's intelligence. The plant knows what you need, and it's going to do that immediately for you if you're open to it.
And then, from just my little bit of experience, it's not going to be the same every time because what
It's
you
not.
need is not the same every time. There's
Exactly.
one experience where it's like, oh my God, life is beautiful. The other experience where you just crying and apologizing to yourself.
Yes.
Like, I was like, this wasn't how it was the first time. What's going on? But I felt better afterwards. But I was like, all right, do what you got to do.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Apparently, I had some stuff I needed to let go. I didn't know was there, but that's the point.
And that is the point. So the plant is going to know the things that you need when you don't even know you need it. And
Absolutely.
another thing that I like about it is that it takes you there relatively gently. It takes you layer to layer to layer, and it's only going to show you whatever it is that you're ready to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one thing I want to hit on before we kind of head towards wrapping up. I mean, it's a couple of different things, but I'll just focus on one. Is this this notion of that's really about a bad trip? I can remember. Hopefully, none of my family get in an attitude about it. But I can remember when I was young, there was a cousin, and they always said, "Oh, we got to keep an eye on her. She did too many drugs. She's not. She had a bad trip. We had to, we got to keep an eye on her. She's not. She never came back fully from that trip. I have no idea. I was like 8 or something, so I have no idea what she took, what she was on, context, or anything like that. But that one internal family rumor, I'll say, stopped me from ever even thinking about anything, like even cannabis, for a really long time.
Sure.
So what would you say with this idea of a bad trip and how that, can be avoided, or what it actually is? Like, it's a misnomer.
So to me, a bad trip, first off, is someone who's using the plant for recreational use. They're not using it for what it's intended for. So then when they're having a experience, things come up for them that they're not expecting and they're not really ready for. Okay. And so since they're not ready for it, that is considered bad, right? They're not ready for whatever is being shown to them. They're not ready for whatever's being told to them. And so then that can, if you're dealing with a lot of different emotional blockages, that's going to continue to keep you shut down or locked down. Okay.
Wow.
And then incite fear, continue to incite fear, or even re-trigger that person. Because again, when we're talking about people with trauma, they're either going to be re-experiencing an event, they're going to be hyper aroused by events, or they're going to try to avoid events altogether. So if you're taking something like psilocybin and that magic mushroom is taking you down an experience that you had as a little girl that you weren't ready to re-experience, that's going to be a bad trip.
Yeah. Absolutely. That day I was on the couch just crying for a few hours at a time. If I didn't understand what was happening, it would have been. And I wasn't even on, it was microdosing. It wasn't even a huge amount. So I'm like, ooh, I'm going to make sure I'm in a good setting with lots of support before I ever even go deeper. Because if this is this at this level,
yes,
we're going to need some help.
Yeah. And honestly, that's the best way. I always recommend that. I recommend that if you're going to do any type of psychedelics specifically, you need to be doing it with a trained professional or shaman, someone that's going to be able to guide you appropriately, and then also be able to help you integrate your experiences once you're done. So that integration piece is key to be able to have you come to a full understanding as to what you experienced and why, and then some good aftercare.
Yeah. And integration, just in layman terms, that's just kind of like having a therapy session or 2 or 3 after that experience when you're lucid and can talk about what you saw, heard, or experienced.
Exactly. Yes. So this is something you do. This is not something you do on your own. Unless
Yeah, you don't do that with a cup of Hennessy and like a
right.
blunt. This is like for real medicine. Now
Yes,
that's a different kind of medicine. If you just need to chill out, that's different. But that's not this.
exactly.
Ah, Shay. Well, let's talk about. So you've mentioned this workshop. So, what Dr. Keisha is referring to is that we have a workshop coming up this Sunday. It's at 1 p.m. Pacific time. I think it's 4 o'clock Eastern. And scrolling the ticker at the bottom of the screen, you can see more information about it. And I'll add it into the description, and it may already be in the description for this video, so that you can register for that. But I will say it's a part of a series of events that we're doing for Beautiful, Powerful Love that is curated for and by Black women and femmes. So the brothers, I'm sorry, we'll do something another time. But like I said, my mission is around these original women on the planet, the first women on the planet, Black women. And, I'm extending that to Black women and femmes without getting into the politics of it, because it's about the divine feminine and women of color, because we want to have a safe space where we can heal our stuff, which is very unique. There's similarities to other women, there's similarities to Black men or men of color, but Black women, our trauma is our trauma, and we need to be able to prioritize healing that without worrying about other pieces. And so this is a part of a series of events that are happening. It started last weekend, and we're going to do this every weekend for the next 6 weeks. Didn't realize as I was planning this that all of these retreat weekends are pretty much happening during Venus retrograde. So of course, I was like, okay, that makes sense. We're giving people, sisters, more tools to use for self-care as Venus, aka Oshun, aka, that divine feminine is going internal and telling you to take care of you. Find out what you desire, what you love, what brings you joy, and to heal. And each weekend we're bringing more things to help you do that. And this Sunday, July 30th, Dr. Keisha is going to spend a couple of hours with us talking more in detail about the different types of psychedelics, because I was just lumping them all together. It's like, oh, there's psychedelics and non-psychedelics. Do you want to go through that outline that we talked about the other day, of like the high level things you want to talk about?
Oh goodness, I don't even have it with me. So
I'll remember some of it. So actually I wrote it down, so you can just comment on it as I say it.
Okay.
I'm just throwing stuff at you. So you were going to talk about Black women and mental health and trauma, the incidence rates.
Yes.
Psychedelics. So this is the part that was really new for me, because I was just lumping it all together. So psychedelics and then non-psychedelics.
Absolutely.
I like rape, which we're not even going to talk about how that's spelled. That kind of triggers people. Just how do you even spell that? But she'll give all the details. But there are things that are plant-based and indigenous that are non-psychedelics, but are still part of the healing process.
Most definitely, yes.
And then even in psychedelics, there's things that are created in a lab, more or less, but versus things that are just plant-based, that grow, that are indigenous, that are thousands of years old.
That's correct.
And we're on a trajectory of course, approving the ones that are lab-based that can be more controlled and profit.
Absolutely, yes. So I'll talk a little bit about that as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And then this idea of having the being in an environment with someone to lead that process, if this is part of your healing journey and something you want to do, what that healing circle might look like, and some of the other things that Dr. Keisha does in terms of leading healing circles. So this Sunday, July 30th, we're going in even deeper to talk about this. And then the following Sunday, we'll move some bodies a little bit, get into some Pilates, because the idea is that what we eat, which we did last weekend, how we can heal our minds, how we can heal our bodies and take up space, how we can move our bodies, how we can use hypnosis, how we can use sensual healing. Like at the end of this 6 weeks, I'm trying to have like what is it? The League of Heroes. I don't know. Super Friends. Whatever. We try to have all of the superpowers that Black women innately have. You can bring it out at your own pace. So I'm excited. I'm so glad that you were able to participate both today and on Sunday. Sunday is going to be fire.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you again.
Listen, I understand that trying to hide And I understand that having to bust through some blocks so that you can no longer hide. Because, I'm tired of the spiritual Mack trucks. I'm not trying to get hit. I'm not trying to have spirit knock me on my ass to make me get on my path. I'm trying to go willingly.
Absolutely. Ancestors say
Whatever
it's
I
time
got
for
to
you to
do,
come out. It's time for you to come out. So I go,
time to
oh
come
boy,
out.
okay.
Connector. I'm not the expert in all the things. I dibble, I dabble, but I know how to find some experts and bring it together. And I know my experience. So here we are.
Ashe, ashe.
So with that, I think there's a few people that are still on. Let's see if there are any questions, anything. I know there's been a couple of comments that post-traumatic slave disorder is for real. Who made y'all priests? What's up, brother? And Ia Ifasola. But any questions, we'll give it a couple of minutes. And in the meantime, we'll give it a couple more minutes in case people have questions. But in the meantime, I'll ask a question.
Okay.
So there's been a huge, I don't know if it's happening more or if it's getting diagnosed more, but things like anxiety, depression, and ADHD. It seems like it's on the uptick, or either I'm just more aware of it, whatever the case may be. Our plant medicines, I'm pretty sure for depression and anxiety, but things like ADHD, the plant medicines, can it support those types of conditions as well?
Most definitely. So first and foremost, any type of psychiatric or psychotropic medications that are prescribed for any condition, all of them have a plant base. All of them do. And then there's synthetic properties that are added on top of it. So the short answer to your question is yes, there are most definitely plants or herbs that you can use to treat all those conditions. The ones that you mentioned obviously have been diagnosed for eons, and they've been diagnosed in our community specifically at an alarming rate. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so because of all the behavioral issues, of course, that we see from kids and all of that. And so they want to quickly slap us with labels and then give us these medications.
Right.
But they're not doing anything to actually help ameliorate the problem.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that, take, for example, ADHD, and I think one of the medications for that, or the name brand medication, is Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a shortage of Adderall.
Mm-hmm.
A fake shortage, because the FDA decided to tell all of the pharmaceutical companies don't produce as much.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And definitely don't produce as much generic, produce the $700 brand name.
Absolutely.
And so what I'm telling people is, all right, now it's time to do research, because they've gotten us on that, but now now they're taking it away, and now you need to find other ways to not ever have to go back to it, if
Absolutely.
possible. And so it sounds like plant medicine and doing some of that research, or even having consultation with you, is one of the things that people can do and look at.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. So again, there's a lot of herbs that you can take, and that'll be some of the things I could talk about as well, just different ways in which those herbs can be ingested.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I will say, though, is that whenever you're taking any type of herb, you're not going to get that immediate effect that you get from synthetic medications.
Right.
You're not going to see the changes that you need to see for probably a good, 3 to 4 weeks, honestly, because it takes that long for it to build up into your system. So as long as you're patient and you know that you're doing things the natural way, then you should be fine.
Ashe, ashe. And with that, we'll close out and welcome everyone to join us, or at least the women of color, the women and femmes of color. Again, brothers, maybe we'll do something for you later, or we'll collaborate, or y'all can reach out to Dr. Keisha. Because she out now. We might
That's right.
All over the interwebs. We see all of these other things. I see all these other things pop up on my timeline about plant medicines and, psychedelics and all the things, but none of them look like us, or have the experience and understanding of our experience. So we need that, and we need you. And we're so thankful that you're doing your work.
Ashe, ashe.
Okay. And with that, good people, have a good evening. If you're watching this on the replay, again, click subscribe and like, and join us in the workshop. If you're seeing this in the replay, the workshop will be available on demand as well if you can't join us live. And we hope to see you in the space. Take care.
All right, take care.